Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere loud, brutal, and extremely underfunded in the emotional support department. You wake up with a sore neck, an iron collar, and the delightful realization that you're not on vacation. You're being marched across the Roman countryside in chains. A gift, really, from one empire to another. You might have been a prisoner of war, a petty criminal, or just a guy who borrowed the wrong senator's goat. Doesn't matter now. Your property, your inventory, your future arena bait. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge into a walled compound. Not a prison, not exactly. It's a ludus, a gladiator training school. The gate creaks open like it's been waiting just for you. Inside, the air is a heady mix of sweat, dust, and someone's failed attempt at soup. The ground is packed earth. There are no welcome gifts, just a wooden post where one poor soul is already tied, bleeding and groaning. You don't get a tour. You get shouted at in Latin, in Greek, maybe even in curses that transcend language. You're handed a tunic, scratchy, smells like fear. Historians still argue whether new gladiators were given a medical exam, but you feel like you've failed it already. You're shown a cramped cell, or to a room if you're lucky. Stone walls, straw bedding, one bucket. You're told your name doesn't matter anymore. You belong to the lanista now, the guy who runs the place, somewhere between a coach, an investor, and a really intense debt collector with a sword fetish. That night, you try to sleep. The sounds of groaning and chain clinks echo around you. Someone sobs quietly. Someone else laughs like they've gone mad. You're not sure which you'd rather be. Next morning, the training starts.
No stretching. No ansperaschen el speeches.
Just a wooden sword and a guy twice your size who says, block or bleed. You block barely. You bleed definitely. You quickly learn that the ludus is a place where hope comes to do push-ups until it passes out. The instructors aren't here to teach you to win. They're here to teach you to die convincingly, but with just enough fight that the crowd gets their money's worth. Quirky fact: the word gladiator comes from gladius, the short Roman sword, handy in a crowd, also handy for stabbing dreams. You eat twice a day. It's not bad: grains, beans, a bit of meat if you've done well, or if someone else died and left theirs untouched. It's the empire's version of performance cuisine. You start to bulk up, not from protein but from sheer fear. The other men don't talk much, not yet. Everyone's watching, gauging. One guy, missing half an ear, gives you a nod. Might mean he thinks you'll make it. Might mean he's claiming dibs on your sandals when you die. You get branded.
Sommière inconspicuous, but permanent.
It hurts. It smells like burned bacon. It's your new last name. You watch an older man get dragged out of the training yard. He didn't collapse. He just stopped. Stopped swinging. Stopped blocking. Looked up at the sun and let the practiced blade hit his skull. No one speaks his name. You find yourself staring at your hands. They're blistered, cracked, tougher already. You can feel your body changing. Your brain too. Less room for questions. More space for reflex. The only thing heavier than the chain around your ankle is the unspoken truth. The cheering crowds will never know who you were, but they will know how loudly you screamed. The rooster doesn't crow, because there's no rooster. What wakes you instead is the clang of metal against stone. A gate sliding open, a bucket tossed, someone bellowing that you've got until the count of 10 to be vertical. You're vertical by 4. The ludus doesn't care if you slept well. Sleep is optional. Training is not. Your tunic is damp. Sweat from yesterday or fear from today. Unclear. You slip it on anyway. The morning air carries the sweet stench of bodies that have accepted their fate, and bread that is only slightly fresher than the bricks it was baked on. You step into the yard, blinking against the rising sun. It's already hot. Rome doesn't do gentle mornings. Around you, other trainees are assembling. Some stretch, some spit, a few mutter quiet prayers to gods you've never heard of. You decide to pray to your own 2 feet. They've carried you this far. Today's agenda? More beatings. but structured ones. You start with footwork drills. One instructor, bald, sunburned, missing several important teeth, barks orders as you stumble in a circle with a wooden sword and a square shield. Left, right, jab, duck. You're not jabbing. You're flailing with purpose. Historians still argue whether gladiators were trained to kill or to entertain. Here, the answer is yes. Next, paired sparring. Your partner is a Briton named Coddiern. He doesn't speak Latin, but he grins in Latin. He swings with intent. You block, barely, then again, then again. Your arm is numb. You lower your guard for half a second, and the wooden sword thuds against your ribs like a battering ram. You drop to your knees. He laughs. You wheeze. Up. The trainer growls. You're up. You don't get breaks. You get shouted at until someone bleeds too much to continue. Fortunately, today that's not you. Unfortunately, it's a man who slips in the dirt mid-lunge and lands badly. His leg twists the wrong way. They drag him off. You never see him again. Quirky fact. Some gladiator schools had on-site medics called medici. Their survival rates weren't stellar, but hey, they tried. Sometimes. By mid-morning, it's weapons practice. You're handed a rudis, a heavier-than-normal wooden sword. It's not supposed to be deadly. It just feels like it when you accidentally catch someone's collarbone with it. The instructor says nothing. The man just grunts and swings harder. Your shoulders burn. Your thighs tremble. Your sweat smells metallic, like your body already knows it might be spilled for real soon. Then comes the shield drill, run full speed at a wall while bracing behind a shield. The goal? Not to break the wall. Just your fear. You think it's working. Mostly. There's lunch. Sort of. Barley gruel and dried figs. You eat on the ground, back against the sun-warmed bricks. Coddiern sits beside you, offers you half of something that might be cheese. You take it. That's friendship, Luda style. Afternoon brings helmet drills. You wear one of the practice helmets. Leather and iron, smells like old feet and despair, while standing still as an instructor hits your shield. Repeatedly, to test your balance. Or his patience. You don't ask which. Historians believe gladiators train 6 days a week. You're on day 3, and your bones are negotiating terms with gravity. Evening comes. Finally, you stumble back to your cell. Your body aches like you've been rearranged. You have muscles you didn't know existed are now very vocal. You lie on the straw, eyes open, watching the ceiling. Then you hear it. Someone somewhere humming. A lullaby? No, a song of defiance. Quiet, in a tongue older than Rome. And suddenly you remember you are not alone. Not yet. You're broken, but not beaten. Not today. Word count 1087. Awaiting, continue.
Bạn đã nói.
Continue.
Jack đã nói.
Section 3. You're up before the sun. Not by choice. No one here chooses to rise. They're summoned by the sound of doors slamming, trainers shouting, and that one guy who always seems too excited to exercise at dawn. His name is probably cursed in 4 languages. You mutter all of them under your breath. Today starts with sand drills. You hate sand now. It gets into everything, your eyes, your sandals, your future. You're told to sprint the length of the yard, drop, roll, and jump up ready to strike. Over and over, until the word strike feels like a myth invented to make falling less humiliating. You feel your lungs begging for negotiations, but the sand doesn't care. Neither does your trainer. He waves a whip, not to hit you, just to remind you it could. Historians still argue whether gladiators received proper combat conditioning or were simply overtrained into numbness. You're beginning to think the answer is whatever gets the job done before lunch. Next, it's weapon matching. Not all gladiators fight the same. Today, you're introduced to the variety menu of misery. The retiarius with his net and trident, grinning like he's going fishing for your dignity. The secutor with his smooth helmet, built like a fortress in sandals. The Dimacharius, who dual wields like someone didn't explain how math works. Your role? Practice dummy for all 3. You parry. You pivot. You regret everything. By mid-morning, it's time for shield formations. Group drills now, which means you must cooperate with men who, yesterday, may or may not have tried to kick you during a water break. You're arranged in formation and ordered to hold a testudo, the famous Roman tortoise defense. It works beautifully, until Cadiern sneezes and drops his shield, and the instructor screams like the emperor just died. Quirky fact: some gladiator schools reenacted actual military formations to train discipline and footwork. Turns out, the difference between soldier and spectacle was just branding. You break for water 1 jug, pass down the line. You drink, wipe your face, and pass it on. No one talks. Your mouth tastes like copper and crushed pride. After water, it's time for wooden animal targets. Yes, wooden animals. They're on wheels. They wobble. You're told to imagine they're wild beasts. Lions, boars, maybe even a rogue giraffe. Probably not. But hey, imagination counts. You're instructed to strike quickly, then retreat, never linger. The wooden lion rolls toward you. You swing. Mississippi gets smacked in the ankle by a collapsing wheel. Your pride dies a little more. Then comes balance training. A narrow beam, 3 feet off the ground, over a pit filled with sand and what looks suspiciously like last week's soup. You're told to walk it in full armor. Shield in one hand, weighted sack in the other. You fall twice. The third time, you make it across. Barely. The trainer claps. Once. Ironically, lunch again. You gnaw on barley cakes and some sort of lentil mash. Tastes like wet paper. Cadiern offers you a sliver of something smoked. You don't ask what. You just eat it and pretend it's delicious. Then it's back to the yard. You're handed a real weapon this time, dull, yes, but metal. Heavy. Honest. It hums in your grip. It whispers something dark and ancient. You practice combinations. Slash, thrust, dodge. Over and over. Until your arms tremble and your vision swims. Historians believe gladiators trained up to 8 hours a day. You're living it. Your body hates you. Your mind is starting to forget what softness feels like. Evening falls. The light turns bronze. The sand glows like embers. You collapse onto the stone step outside your cell. Cadiern sits beside you, silent. Then, from across the yard, a slow clap echoes. One of the veteran fighters, older, scarred, still alive, nods at you, just once, and somehow that's enough. You get up, slowly, muscles screaming, but heart steadier. You survived another day in the ludus. Barely. The rooster doesn't crow, because there's no rooster. What wakes you instead is the clang of metal against stone. A gate sliding open, a bucket tossed, someone bellowing that you've got until the count of 10 to be vertical. You're vertical by 4. The ludus doesn't care if you slept well. Sleep is optional. Training is not. Your tunic is damp. Sweat from yesterday or fear from today, unclear. You slip it on anyway. The morning air carries the sweet stench of bodies that have accepted their fate, and bread that is only slightly fresher than the bricks it was baked on. You step into the yard, blinking against the rising sun. It's already hot. Rome doesn't do gentle mornings. Around you, other trainees are assembling. Some stretch, some spit, a few mutter quiet prayers to gods you've never heard of. You decide to pray to your own 2 feet. They've carried you this far. Today's agenda? More beatings, but structured ones. You start with footwork drills. One instructor, bald, sunburned, missing several important teeth, barks orders as you stumble in a circle with a wooden sword and a square shield. Left, right, jab, duck. You're not jabbing. You're flailing with purpose. Historians still argue whether gladiators were trained to kill or to entertain. Here, the answer is yes. Next, paired sparring. Your partner is a Briton named Cadiern. He doesn't speak Latin, but he grins in Latin. He swings with intent. You block, barely, then again, then again. Your arm is numb. You lower your guard for half a second, and the wooden sword thuds against your ribs like a battering ram. You drop to your knees. He laughs. You wheeze. Up. The trainer growls. You're up. You don't get breaks. You get shouted at until someone bleeds too much to continue. Fortunately, today that's not you. Unfortunately, it's a man who slips in the dirt mid-lunge and lands badly. His leg twists the wrong way. They drag him off. You never see him again. Quirky fact: some gladiator schools had on-site medics called medici. Their survival rates weren't stellar, but hey, they tried. Sometimes, by mid-morning, it's weapons practice. You're handed a rudis, a heavier than normal wooden sword. It's not supposed to be deadly. It just feels like it when you accidentally catch someone's collarbone with it. The instructor says nothing. The man just grunts and swings harder. Your shoulders burn. Your thighs tremble. Your sweat smells metallic, like your body already knows it might be spilled for real soon. Then comes the shield drill, run full speed at a wall while bracing behind a shield. The goal? Not to break the wall. Just your fear. You think it's working. Mostly, there's lunch. Sort of. Barley gruel and dried figs. You eat on the ground, back against the sun-warmed bricks. Kadiern sits beside you, offers you half of something that might be cheese. You take it. That's friendship, Luda style. Afternoon brings helmet drills. You wear one of the practice helmets. Leather and iron, smells like old feet and despair, while standing still as an instructor hits your shield. Repeatedly, to test your balance. Or his patience. You don't ask which. Historians believe gladiators train 6 days a week. You're on day 3, and your bones are negotiating terms with gravity. Evening comes. Finally, you stumble back to your cell. Your body aches like you've been rearranged. You have muscles you didn't know existed are now very vocal. You lie on the straw, eyes open, watching the ceiling. Then you hear it. Someone somewhere humming. A lullaby? No, a song of defiance. Quiet, in a tongue older than Rome. And suddenly you remember you are not alone. Not yet. You're broken, but not beaten. Not today. Word count: 1087. Awaiting, continue.
Bạn đã nói.
Continue.
Jack đã nói.
Section 3. You're up before the sun. Not by choice. No one here chooses to rise. They're summoned by the sound of doors slamming, trainers shouting, and that one guy who always seems too excited to exercise at dawn. His name is probably cursed in 4 languages. You mutter all of them under your breath. Today starts with sand drills. You hate sand now. It gets into everything: your eyes, your sandals, your future. You're told to sprint the length of the yard, drop, roll, and jump up ready to strike. Over and over, until the word strike feels like a myth invented to make falling less humiliating. You feel your lungs begging for negotiations, but the sand doesn't care. Neither does your trainer. He waves a whip, not to hit you, just to remind you it could. Historians still argue whether gladiators received proper combat conditioning or were simply overtrained into numbness. You're beginning to think the answer is whatever gets the job done before lunch. Next, it's weapon matching. Not all gladiators fight the same. Today, you're introduced to the variety menu of misery. The retiarius with his net and trident, grinning like he's going fishing for your dignity. The secutor with his smooth helmet, built like a fortress in sandals. The Dimacharius, who dual wields like someone didn't explain how math works. Your role? Practice dummy for all 3. You parry. You pivot. You regret everything. By mid-morning, it's time for shield formations. Group drills now, which means you must cooperate with men who, yesterday, may or may not have tried to kick you during a water break. You're arranged in formation and ordered to hold a testudo, the famous Roman tortoise defense. It works beautifully, until Kadiern sneezes and drops his shield, and the instructor screams like the emperor just died. Quirky fact: some gladiator schools reenacted actual military formations to train discipline and footwork. Turns out, the difference between soldier and spectacle was just branding. You break for water 1 jug, pass down the line. You drink, wipe your face, and pass it on. No one talks. Your mouth tastes like copper and crushed pride. After water, it's time for wooden animal targets. Yes, wooden animals. They're on wheels. They wobble. You're told to imagine they're wild beasts. Lions, boars, maybe even a rogue giraffe. Probably not. But hey, imagination counts. You're instructed to strike quickly, then retreat, never linger. The wooden lion rolls toward you. You swing. Mississippi gets smacked in the ankle by a collapsing wheel. Your pride dies a little more. Then comes balance training. A narrow beam, 3 feet off the ground, over a pit filled with sand and what looks suspiciously like last week's soup. You're told to walk it in full armor. Shield in one hand, weighted sack in the other. You fall twice. The third time, you make it across. Barely. The trainer claps. Once. Ironically, lunch again. You gnaw on barley cakes and some sort of lentil mash. Tastes like wet paper. Kadiern offers you a sliver of something smoked. You don't ask what. You just eat it and pretend it's delicious. Then it's back to the yard. You're handed a real weapon this time, dull, yes, but metal. Heavy. Honest. It hums in your grip. It whispers something dark and ancient. You practice combinations. Slash, thrust, dodge. Over and over. Until your arms tremble and your vision swims. Historians believe gladiators trained up to 8 hours a day. You're living it. Your body hates you. Your mind is starting to forget what softness feels like. Evening falls. The light turns bronze. The sand glows like embers. You collapse onto the stone step outside your cell. Kadiern sits beside you, silent. Then, from across the yard, a slow clap echoes. One of the veteran fighters, older, scarred, still alive, nods at you, just once, and somehow that's enough. You get up, slowly, muscles screaming, but heart steadier. You survived another day in the Ludus. Barely. The fourth morning starts not with shouting, but with silence. A strange, unsettling stillness hangs in the air, like Rome itself is holding its breath. You sit up, blinking in the dim light of your cell, expecting the usual barked orders or metallic clatter. Instead, there's just Kadiern already awake, already sitting, already staring at nothing. You ask what's happening. He just mutters, "Match day." Your stomach drops. It's not your match. Not yet. But someone else's. Someone from your Ludus. And that means everything slows down, sharpens, becomes real. You'll train today, yes, but with one eye always on the gate. When you step into the yard, it's different. The veterans are armored. Their movements are slower, but deliberate. Not because they're tired, because they're conserving. One of them, Lucius, is set to fight. You've watched him before, quiet, brutal, surgically efficient. He's sharpening a blade with steady hands. You nod at him. He doesn't nod back. Doesn't need to. Your own drills begin. Same forms. Same sand. But the energy is off. You feel it. Everyone does. You're paired again. This time with a scrawny Cappadocian named Ari. He's wiry, quick, unpredictable. Doesn't speak much Latin, but he grins like a madman before every sparring session. Today, he doesn't grin. You go through the motions. Slash, block, twist, retreat. It's like a violent dance with a partner who's trying to trip you every third step. But it works. You're learning. Quirky fact. Some gladiators form tight bonds with training partners and roommates, even carving protective symbols into their weapons for luck. Whether that worked, well, results varied. Mid-morning, the lanista appears. He rarely enters the yard unless it's something big. Today, he's inspecting the fighters, nodding, frowning, occasionally barking a correction. When he reaches you, he pauses. "Not bad," he mutters. High praise. From a man who once described someone's footwork as a donkey sliding on cabbage. He moves on. Lunch arrives early today. The match is in the afternoon, and they want the chosen men light but strong. Bread, dates, a bit of meat. You chew slowly, sitting in the shade with Ari and Kadiern. No one speaks. Finally, the summons comes. A small group is called forward. Lucius among them. He straps on armor, tightens his sandals, and ties a red strip of cloth around his sword arm. You watch as they lead him out through the heavy gate. The iron latch slams shut behind them. You stare at the wood long after they're gone. Historians still argue whether all gladiator matches were to the death or if many were staged with showmanship in mind. Truth is, once the crowd was involved, anything could happen. You return to training, but focus is gone. Everyone's going through the motions. You spend an hour doing shield drills with half the effort and twice the fear. When Lucius returns, he's carried. Not dead, but barely standing. His chest is slashed, his arm limp, his face pale. Medics swarm him. You catch a glimpse of his eyes. They're still open, still alive. Barely. That night, your cell is quiet. Until Ari speaks. Next time, maybe us. You don't answer. Because he's right. You stare up at the ceiling, straw prickling your back. In a weird way, Lucius is lucky. He fought, he survived, he'll get praised. He'll get better food for a week. Maybe a woman. Maybe a laurel wreath. But for every Lucius, there are 10 men no one remembers. Men who fell not with glory, but with a grunt, a stab, and a cleanup crew. You close your eyes. You try not to see the gate. You fail. Your fifth sunrise as a gladiator in progress brings something new. A coin. Not yours, of course. It lands near your foot in the yard during morning drills. Small, bronze, dusty, stamped with the face of an emperor who likely never lifted anything heavier than a goblet. You don't pocket it. You flick it back to the man who dropped it. He nods. In this world, honor is rare. So is change. Today's theme? Economics, but not the classroom kind. No, today you begin to understand just how expensive your life is. You're summoned to a shaded corner of the yard, where a scribe and the lanista are discussing something over a scroll. You're ordered to stand still. They look you over like you're a mule up for auction. Muscles, reflexes, even teeth, all noted. 700 denarii, the lanista says. Too much, the scribe replies. He's green. Fine. 500. Final. They nod. The scroll is marked. You're not sure what it means yet, but you've just been priced. Congratulations. Historians still argue whether gladiators were insured as financial assets or just expendable. From your vantage point, it feels a lot like both. Back in the yard, you catch Kadirn squinting at you. You're worth more than me, he smirks. Probably because I snore. You spar again. But this time, it's different. You're not fighting as two trainees. You're two investments with differing appraisals. Later, in the communal bath, yes, there's a bath, the veterans speak in hushed tones. One complains that his lanista skimps on oil massages. Another brags about a fan who paid to have his likeness painted on a tavern wall. You, soaking your bruised arms, realize something. Gladiators aren't just fighters. They're products. Some come with deluxe packaging. Quirky fact, popular gladiators sometimes had endorsement deals, oils, bombs, even cheap figurines sold in stalls. Basically, you're a first-century action figure. Blood not included. Back in your cell, Ari holds up a rough sketch someone handed him, crude charcoal lines, but clearly meant to be him mid-swing. It's terrible. He's beaming. Fan, he says proudly. You nod, but it unsettles you. This life, this pain, it's entertainment. You're not just killing or surviving. You're performing. And the better you perform, the more valuable you become. Until, of course, you're not. That evening, the lanista makes an announcement. A private exhibition match is coming. For a visiting senator. Small audience, high stakes. He'll choose 2 trainees to showcase. Everyone straightens up a little taller. Everyone suddenly trains a little harder. Including you. Because if you're picked and you win, your value goes up. Maybe even enough to be transferred to a higher tier ludus. One with real beds. Or, you could die in front of 5 rich men and a bored politician. Details. That night, you sit with Kadirn and Ari under the open sky. The stars are faint. The moon is low. You're all quiet for a while. Then Kadirn murmurs, "Ever think about the people watching?" You shrug. "What about them?" He pauses. "Wonder if they see us bleed, or if they only hear the cheering." You say nothing, because deep down you know the answer. The next morning you wake up already clenching your jaw, because today you're getting fitted for armor. Not just any armor. Your armor. Until now you've been training in hand-me-downs. Warped greaves, chipped shields, helmets that smell like old goat. But with the private match coming, the lanista wants his contenders looking sharp. Because looking sharp sells seats. And gods forbid a senator watch you bleed in mismatched gear. The blacksmith greets you with a grunt. He doesn't ask your name, just your measurements. Arms out, legs apart, chest puffed. He wraps cords, scribbles notes on parchment. and taps various body parts with the enthusiasm of someone inspecting livestock. Big chest, slow runner, he mutters. Hope you're dramatic. You're not sure if it's a compliment. He pulls out a selection of gear, all gleaming in the sun. Bronze, iron, leather, and things you can't name. Some look protective. Others look ceremonial. You try on a helmet that completely blocks your peripheral vision. Fantastic. Nothing says prepared like not seeing the sword coming. Historians still argue whether gladiators chose their armor style or were assigned it by the trainers. Judging by the way the blacksmith hands you a thick, curved shield and a short sword with no explanation, it's clearly not your decision. You're told you'll be fighting as a secutor. Classic combo. Smooth, enclosed helmet with tiny eye holes. You know, for that enhanced claustrophobia. A long rectangular shield and a short stabbing sword. Great for defense. Not so great for breathing. We're seeing. We're joy. Next comes the fitting. Everything's strapped, adjusted, buckled. The leather is stiff. The metal cold. The whole setup weighs more than your guilt from last week's shield drop. You can't raise your arms above your head. But hey, who needs that? Quirky fact. Secutor helmets were designed specifically to counter the retiarius, the net and trident fighter. Supposedly made to deflect tridents and avoid entanglement. What it didn't do was allow for airflow. You sweat just thinking about it. You spend the afternoon moving in your new gear. At first, you look like a turtle learning ballet, but slowly you adjust. The weight becomes familiar. The creak of the leather, the rattle of the greaves, they become your rhythm section. Codiern watches, arms crossed. You look like a funeral urn. You pause. Is that supportive? He shrugs. Depends whose funeral. You're not offended. In the ludus, affection is expressed mostly through insults and food sharing. You're still waiting for the food part. Later, you're marched out with the other fighters for a parade drill. Yes, a parade drill. Because being a gladiator isn't just about stabbing. It's about branding. You're shown how to march in step, how to salute, how to pause dramatically so the audience can gasp at your tragic, helmeted dignity. You even practice falling. Not from being hit, just for flair. Because when you go down cinematically. Historians suggest gladiatorial shows were choreographed more than we think. Not fake, but theatrical. You believe it now. You're not a killer. You're a costume dancer with rage issues and heat stroke. That night, your armor is stored, oiled, and guarded. You return to your cell with sore shoulders and the sound of clinking metal still echoing in your ears. Ari's already inside, sitting cross-legged, whispering to a tiny carved figure. It's a makeshift idol shaped like a falcon. You recognize it from the east. Protection, he says. You lie down on your straw mat, your back bruised, your neck sore from helmet strain. You whisper, "Do you think it'll help?" He shrugs. "Can't hurt." You close your eyes, picturing the helmet again, the narrow eye slits, the suffocating stillness, the way your breath fogs the inside. You think, this armor could protect you. You also think, this armor could bury you. Dawn doesn't wake you today, nerves do. They creep in before the light, like rats scuttling across your chest. Because today isn't about training. It's about performance. The private match is happening, and you've been chosen. You barely eat. The barley mash feels like ash. Even Codiern is quiet. Ari offers a solemn tap to your shoulder. No words, just a silent acknowledgement. You may not come back the same, or at all. The courtyard is already buzzing. Not with shouting, but preparation. The lanista walks the line of chosen fighters like a man inspecting prized horses before auction. He nods at you, says nothing. That's as close as you'll get to encouragement. You're led to the prep room. Not a chamber of glory, a glorified stable. Smells of oil, leather, and stale blood. You're helped into your armor. The same one from training, your secutor gear, though now it shines like it means something. It's been polished, adorned with tiny ribbons of red. For flair, the servant says. For color contrast, should you bleed. Fantastic. The match will take place in a small villa arena just outside the city. Owned by some senator whose hobbies include racing horses and watching men try not to die. You ride there in a cart covered by a tarp. Because nothing says honored warrior like traveling like cargo. Historians still argue whether private matches were more or less dangerous than those in public arenas. Some say the crowds kept things civil. Others say smaller audiences meant fewer rules. You arrive. The arena is intimate. A perfect circle surrounded by marble benches. 15, maybe 20 guests. Rich robes. Richer food. They sip wine as you're ushered in. You can smell figs and roasted meats. Your stomach growls. Inappropriate. You take your mark across from your opponent. It's not Codiern or Ari. It's a stranger from another ludus. A retiarius net and trident.
Lean, fast, smug.
His helmet is open-faced. Yours isn't. He can breathe. You wheeze. The signal is given. You circle. He dances. You charge, shield up, sword poised. He flings the net. You duck. Feel it graze your shoulder. You slash at the rope, too slow. He lunges with the trident. Clangs off your helmet. You stumble, vision swimming. Your shield saves you. Barely. You bash forward, catch him off balance. He skids back. Then it clicks. He's fast but cocky. You adjust. Wait, let him make the next move. He twirls the net again. Showy. Stupid. You lunge under it, sword forward, catch him on the thigh. He yelps. Backs off. You press. Harder. Relentless. You drive him to the edge of the arena, sand kicking up like smoke. One final swing and he drops the trident. You stand over him, sword raised. The senator lifts a hand. Thumb flat. Not up. Not down. Neutral. Your lanista steps in. Ends it. It's done. Quirky fact. The thumb gesture's meaning is still debated. Thumbs down might not have meant death. It may have meant sheathe your weapon. Either way, your opponent lives. So do you. Barely. You're escorted out. Armor stripped. Wounds checked. Nothing deep. Just bruises, cuts, exhaustion. You lie on a stone bench as a medic dabs your forehead with wine-soaked cloth. Later, back at the ludus, you're greeted by silence. Then Codiern grins. Not bad for a funeral urn. You almost laugh. Almost. That night, your name is etched on a slate by the main gate. Not big. Not fancy. Just a mark that you existed. That you fought. That you won. There's a shift in how people look at you now. Subtle but unmistakable. Fewer sidelong glances, more direct nods. You walk into the yard and the air parts just a bit differently. Not because you're a champion, you're not. But because you stepped into the sand, came back breathing, and brought your limbs with you. That's currency in the ludus. The veterans take notice. One even slaps your shoulder in passing. Hard enough to jostle a rib, but hey, it's affection. Another offers to spar. That one's less of a gift. Still, you say yes, because this is how you level up, not in skill necessarily, but in value. A fighter who performs well in exhibition might be selected for bigger matches, wealthier patrons, maybe even whisper it, a path to freedom. Historians still argue whether gladiators could realistically earn their rudis, the wooden sword that granted freedom. The official line is yes. The reality? You'd need years, victories, and the favor of someone who matters. Which brings us to this morning's visitor, a lanista from another ludus. He watches from the shade, arms folded, as you go through drills.
No smiles.
Just eyes like ledgers. You spar better, move sharper, breathe louder. You feel yourself perform not for the crowd, but for that one man with the checklist. He leaves without speaking to you. An hour later, your lanista summons you. Transfer offer, he says flatly. They want you. Better food. Real baths. But I trained you. That's worth more. You blink. So, I'm not going. He shrugs. Unless they offer more. Quirky fact. Gladiators could be traded between ludi like athletes. Sometimes with pomp. Sometimes quietly, like cattle swaps with more blood. You return to your cell that night with a new kind of ache. Not bruises, those are healing. This one's deeper. You're still owned. Just now, you're a valuable possession. Codiern notices. Don't frown too hard. They might charge rent for it. You snort. First time you've laughed all week. Later, the trainer pulls you aside. You've moved up, he says. tossing you a heavier sword. Try not to drop it on your foot. He gestures to the center ring. The veteran ring, as it's whispered. You step in. The sand feels the same. But now eyes are watching not just to judge, but to learn. You spar with Lucius, yes, that Lucius still healing from his last real fight. He's slower, but smarter. Every move is a lesson. Every pause, a warning. He doesn't speak, but his blade teaches you plenty. By the time you leave the ring, your arms feel like boiled rope. You're handed water. Cold. Precious. You sip. Then someone offers you a date. The fruit, not an invitation. Still, it's kindness. You nod your thanks. That night, under the stars, Ari asks quietly, "Would you take the offer? If they paid more?" You don't answer right away, because deep down you don't know what's worse. Staying where you're known or starting over somewhere richer, but colder. You lie awake, listening to the creak of leather, the groan of bones settling in straw. You're becoming something, not a man, not quite a machine, something in between. And whatever it is, it survives. You're starting to count time differently now. Not in days or drills or meals, but in matches, yours and other people's. Time is measured in who left the yard, and whether or not they came back breathing. This week, 3 left. 2 returned. 1 didn't. His name was Pavo. Young, fast, full of swagger. He was training to fight as a Thraex, curved sword, small shield, flashy footwork. He used to joke that he'd become so famous, people would name their dogs after him. They might still. Dogs aren't picky. The day after Pavo's death, the yard is quieter. No jokes, no swagger, just the rhythm of footwork and the occasional grunt of impact. Everyone's moving, but no one is speaking. You practice with Kadiern again, and you both go a little harder this time. Not out of anger, out of survival. You're trying to sharpen each other like blades, not to wound, but to polish. After the drills, the Lanista gathers everyone. Announces that 2 of you will be traveling next week to Capua. A bigger city, bigger arena, bigger stakes. He reads the names. Yours is one of them. Your stomach doesn't drop. Clenches, like it's hugging itself. Historians believe the amphitheater in Capua was second only to the Colosseum. It was massive, loud, lethal. Kadiern slaps your back. You'll love Capua. Great wine. Terrible mortality rate. Quirky fact. Some gladiators were regional celebrities. The same way you might cheer for a hometown team, certain cities adopted their fighters. They'd paint your name on walls, chant it in the street, even write poems if you died impressively enough. You're not sure if that's comforting. Later that evening, you're taken aside by the trainer. "You'll be fighting a Murmillo," he says, handing you a small scroll. It's not a poem. It's a profile. Weight, height, weapon preference. You blink. You collect stats? He grins. This isn't chaos. It's business. You study the scroll by torchlight. Your opponent is big. Shield the size of a table. Sword like a butcher's tool. But slow. That's your edge. You spend the next days rehearsing. Practicing sidesteps, shield bashes, quick slashes to the leg. Over and over. Until you can't remember if you're training to kill or choreographing a very aggressive dance. The night before you leave for Capua, Ari gives you a gift. It's a charm, tiny, wooden, shaped like a fish. For luck, he says, or distraction. Throw it if things go badly. You laugh. You tuck it in your belt anyway. Morning arrives. You pack nothing. There's nothing to pack. Just your armor, your training, and whatever sliver of confidence you can fake. The cart that takes you is fancier this time. Padded seats. A canopy. Apparently, being a rising star gets you shade. On the road, you pass towns where children stop to wave. One shouts your name. You don't know how they know it. You don't ask, because part of you wants to be known. And another part knows that fame only matters if you live long enough to enjoy it. As Capua appears on the horizon, all arches and echoing noise, you adjust your grip on the seat. You think of Pavo, and you whisper that you'll be luckier, because someone has to be. Capua hits your senses like a slap from a golden goblet. The streets are wide, loud, and baked in sunlight. Market stalls burst with fruit you've only smelled in passing: pomegranates, figs, honeyed almonds. Children chase each other between wagons while their parents haggle with alarming intensity. It's vibrant, alive, decadent, and yet none of it is for you. You're led straight to the amphitheater, an oval colossus of white stone and red banners flapping in the breeze. The closer you get, the louder the city grows. Not in volume, in expectation. You can feel it like pressure behind your eyes. The city wants blood, artfully delivered. Inside, you're shown your quarters: stone walls, straw mats, a small bath, and a barred window facing the courtyard. Fancy compared to your old cell. There's even a bowl of olives waiting for you. Don't get excited. They're probably for the mice. Your new trainer introduces himself with a grunt and a broken tooth. He doesn't ask your name. He knows it. You're announced tomorrow as one of the guest combatants. A nice way of saying, here to entertain but not local, so expendable. You spend the afternoon training with a few other guests. One is a woman. That surprises you. She's fast, brutal, and says nothing. When she disarms her opponent with a flick of the wrist and a smile like a knife, you decide to give her space. Historians still argue whether female gladiators were rare exceptions or more common than records show. One thing's certain: they were unforgettable. That night, the amphitheater hosts a pre-game banquet. You're not invited, obviously, but you are paraded through the hall in your full armor while nobles sip imported wine and comment on your posture, as if you're a piece of pottery. You catch a glimpse of the senator from your last fight. He nods. You think it's approval. It might be indigestion. Back in your quarters, you try to sleep, but the noise from the banquet echoes through the walls. Laughter, music, toasts to valor and spectacle. You stare at the ceiling and realize they're toasting your pain in advance. Quirky fact: some elite Romans believed watching live combat purified the soul, that witnessing struggle and triumph brought them closer to the gods. Convenient when you're not the one doing the struggling. The next morning, the sun rises red. You're oiled, armored, and escorted to the staging tunnel. The air is cool here, damp with ancient sweat. The walls hum with vibrations from the gathering crowd above. Drums begin to pound, slow, rhythmic, inevitable. You meet your opponent in silence. He's massive. A murmillo with a helmet shaped like a fish's head, a shield that could block daylight, and biceps that deserve their own parade. He nods once, respectful. You nod back, because it might be the last civil exchange of your life. The gates rise, light floods in, noise follows, waves of it. Chanting, screaming, cheering. You walk onto the sand like a man walking across hot coals, hoping he doesn't slip. The lanista raises his hand. The crowd hushes. The trumpet sounds. The fight begins. You circle, testing his range. He doesn't bite, just waits. You feint left. He steps just a hair and you strike low. Your blade glances off his greave. He lunges forward. You duck, roll, slash upward. He grunts. Not hurt, just aware now. The dance continues. Metal ringing, sand flying, breath ragged. You land a cut to his thigh. He slams your shield with your ribs scream. You stumble. He advances. And then, with a move you didn't know you had, you twist, duck under his guard, and drive your blade into the space behind his knee. He drops. The crowd erupts. You step back, sword raised, not to kill, to pause. The official approaches the senator. This time, the thumb goes up. Mercy. You live. He lives. You both collapse in the sand like men reborn through fire. You don't remember being carried out of the arena. You just remember blinking up at a ceiling that wasn't sky and wondering if your ribs were still arranged correctly. They are, mostly. A medic with breath like vinegar dabs your head with wine, muttering something about lucky bones. He means you didn't break anything important. Just bruises. Deep ones. Decorative ones. Your arms look like a map of bad decisions. The murmillo you fought? Alive. Limping. But alive. You both earned something more than applause today. Recognition. Back at your quarters, a slave brings you bread soaked in oil and a bowl of cold lentils. You eat like it's your last meal because one day it will be. Just not today. The next morning, You're greeted with something new, fanfare. Actual fanfare. There's a scroll nailed to the amphitheater gate listing notable performers. Your name is on it, spelled wrong but there. Underneath, valiant technique, surprising footwork, audience approval. You're officially notable. Kadiern would have mocked that. Ari would have asked for a copy. You grin, a little, then you see it. Another name, bolded, decorated. Felix the Beast Slayer. And below that, returning to the arena this week. Felix is a venator, a gladiator who fights animals. And according to legend, he once killed a bear, 2 wolves, and a crocodile in a single morning, with a spear, while laughing. Historians still argue whether exotic animal fights were more common than man-to-man matches. The Roman appetite for spectacle was endless. And what's more entertaining than watching a man wrestle a cheetah? You meet Felix that afternoon. He's taller than you expect, older, missing an ear, covered in scars like someone tried to carve a map into him. He greets you with a nod and says, "I saw your fight. You're quick." You manage a thanks. "You ever go up against a lion?" he asks. You blink.
No.
Then you're still green. Quirky fact. Lions weren't the only animals used in Roman games. Elephants, leopards, ostriches, even hippos made appearances, often imported at great cost. It was less of a zoo, more of a blood-soaked Noah's Ark. You spend the next few days watching Felix train. He uses a long spear, a rope, and something you didn't expect, patience. It's not strength, he tells a crowd of trainees. It's timing. You don't fight the beast. You dance with it. You can't decide if he's a lunatic or a genius. Maybe both. You learn that he's not here just for show. He's training a few new venators. And he's selecting a partner for the upcoming Venetia, the beast hunt. He eyes you once, raises an eyebrow. "You've got good footwork," he says. You shake your head. "I'm not fighting animals." He grins. "No one wants to, but sometimes the arena decides." You sleep poorly that night. Dream of sand soaked red, claws in the dark, and a crowd that cheers not for you, but for the thing trying to eat you. You wake up with your hand on your belt, fingers curled around Ari's fish charm. No lions today, just drills, just bruises, just survival. You've become a souvenir. It starts with a whisper. One of the kitchen boys smuggles you a sketch. It's crude, done in charcoal, but unmistakably you. Short sword raised, helmet tilted, one knee in the sand. It's a drawing of your Capua match. Underneath, in crooked Latin, "The quick one." You laugh. You shouldn't, but you do. The next day you see it again on a wax tablet, this time in better detail. Someone's selling copies. By the end of the week, there are trinkets. A wooden figurine shaped like you, a painted tile with your name, still spelled wrong. Even a gossip scroll claiming you once fought 2 men and a wolf. You didn't, but the story sells. You, dear gladiator, are now merchandise. Quirky fact. Popular gladiators were the celebrities of their day. Their names appeared on tavern walls, on children's toys, and even scratched into bedroom doorposts as lucky charms. Some were commissioned for erotic pottery. You silently pray you're spared that honor. And it gets weirder. One morning, a noblewoman visits the Ludus. Draped in blue silk, she walks the training yard like she owns it. She doesn't look at the veterans. She looks at you. She points. "That one." The Lanista nods. "For what, Domna?" She smiles. "For dinner." "No, not as dinner. Dinner." Turns out some patrons rent gladiators. Not for fighting, for conversation, decoration, the occasional arm wrestle over wine. You're not sure if that's better or worse. You clean up. You're dressed in a robe, not armor, which somehow feels more vulnerable. You're escorted to her villa. Pillars, fountains, more wine than water. At the feast, she introduces you as my brave little conqueror. You resist the urge to correct her pronunciation. The evening is strange. They ask questions, laugh at your stories, or the parts they understand. And one man insists on touching your biceps. You are apparently charming, like a puppy with a sword. Historians still argue how much freedom gladiators had off the sand. Some lived better than free men. Others were treated like living ornaments. You return late, full of roast lamb and shame. Codern raises an eyebrow. You smell like honey and upper class. You grunt. She wanted me to recite poetry. He snorts. You? Did you? I may have made some up. Let me guess. Something about blood and sand.
No, Codern.
I'm not that predictable. He grins. So, fame suits you? You don't answer. Because fame is a trick. It buys you food, maybe better armor. But it also means more fights. More expectations. And when you finally lose, and you will lose, people will remember. You lie in the dark, thinking of Ari's quiet prayers, of Pavo's missing swagger, of the Murmillo's falling shield. You think of your name on tiles and gossip scrolls. And you wonder, how many statues does it take to keep a ghost company? You're limping again. Not from a fight, not this time. Just from existing. Your joints are a little stiffer. Your bruises last longer. And every time you swing a blade, you feel something in your shoulder mutter, "Why are we still doing this?" Your body is protesting its employment. Still, the matches continue. Not all to the death, but all to exhaustion. You spar, you sweat, you bleed, sometimes more dramatically than others. The crowd loves it. They love you. They chant your name now, or something close to it. Velox. They yell, which means swift. You didn't pick it. Picked you. Like a stray dog or a bad haircut. You get fan mail, crude, misspelled notes tossed into the training yard by smitten admirers. One includes a love poem. Another includes a lock of hair. You hope it's from a head. Quirky fact. Some gladiators were so adored that women wrote their names in love spells or requested their sweat as perfume. You, unfortunately, have neither magic nor scent to bottle, just a sore back and peeling feet. The Lanista notices your popularity, offers you a perk, extra rations, a softer sleeping mat, maybe even wine. You ask for time in the bathhouse instead. Your muscles scream their gratitude. Inside the bathhouse, the steam wraps around you like a ghost. You soak, float, breathe. It's the first time in weeks your body hasn't felt like a weapon left out in the rain. Then you see it, a scar running from your left knee to your ankle. You barely remember how you got it. Was it the retiarius? Or the time you slipped during a drill? There are others. One on your ribs, a notch missing from your ear. You're not just surviving, you're accumulating. Historians still argue whether gladiators viewed their scars as trophies or reminders. Some saw them as honor. Others saw them as countdowns. You towel off slowly, carefully, like touching a borrowed suit of flesh. In the courtyard, a trainer approaches with news. You're scheduled for another match. Nothing major, just a warm-up bout for a larger event. But you'll be facing Crixus. You blink. That Crixus. He nods. Crixus is a name wrapped in muscle. He's a hoplomachus, long spear, small shield, tall frame. Think elegance with a murder stick. You spend the next 3 days drilling defense. Quick footwork, shield positioning, sidesteps. Codern helps, sparring like he's already mourning you. Don't try to outpower him, he says. Be annoying. Make him dance. The day arrives. The crowd is smaller this time. Intimate, which means they can see every mistake. You step into the sand. Crixus is already there. Taller than memory, calmer than expectation. You nod. He nods. The horn sounds. You circle. He jabs. You duck. He spins. You stumble. Then you land a cut. Just a graze, but enough to make him grunt. You grin. He smirks. You last longer than expected. Long enough for the crowd to clap. Long enough for the Lanista to look mildly surprised. Then he trips you. Shield to your ribs. Spear to your neck. Not deep. Not fatal. Just final. He leans in. Nice try, Velox. You wheeze. Thanks. Later, bandaged and sore, you sit by the fire pit outside the sleeping quarters. Ari joins you, quiet, holding bread. You share it, and you wonder, how much longer can you keep collecting bruises before one of them stays? It starts with a whisper. The rudis, a wooden sword, plain, smooth, innocent looking. But in this world, it's the most beautiful object you can imagine. Freedom, that's what it means. If a gladiator is granted the rudis, they are officially released from the life. No more matches, no more drills, no more sleeping with one eye open and both knees sore. Just life, whatever that means now. You don't dare to hope, but others do. Lucius mentions it over stew. You've earned a name. That's step one. Cottiern chuckles. He'll need to kill a few more people first. Ari just looks at you. Would you take it? You say yes. Of course. Who wouldn't? But the truth is muddier. Because by now, you've become something else. Something built for this world. Out there, you're nobody. In here, you're Velox. The quick one. The survivor. The guy who lasted against Crixus and walked away with all his parts. Historians still argue whether most gladiators truly wanted their freedom. Some built reputations so great they refused to retire. Others took their wooden sword and disappeared into farming, priesthood, even teaching at Ludi. You're not sure which path you take, if you ever get the choice. But then, one morning, the Lanista pulls you aside. There's a chance, he says. A magistrate's son is throwing a festival. Big money, important guests. You fight well, they might notice. You nod. Try to keep your heartbeat quiet. Ari squeezes your shoulder. Cottiern slaps your back so hard your lungs hiccup. And so, you begin preparing for what could be your final fight. Not because it's the deadliest, but because it's your shot to leave the arena as something other than a smear on the sand. You're matched against a provocator, evenly armed, evenly armored. It's meant to be fair, balanced, strategic, which means hard. You train harder than ever, not with fear, with precision. Every move honed, every block timed. You become a machine of reflexes, blood, and willpower. On the day of the fight, the sun is kind, cloud-covered, cool. The crowd is huge, lively, drunk on wine and anticipation. You're announced with flair. Velox the Quick, veteran of Capua. You raise your sword, trying not to trip over your own heartbeat. Your opponent enters, tall, quiet, focused. The trumpet sounds, and everything blurs. You remember blocks, feints, that one perfect roll. The time he cut your arm and you smiled through the sting. You remember parrying until your wrist burned. You remember hearing the crowd chanting something. Not your name, but just sound, raw and loud. And then, he slips. You're faster. Your blade is at his throat. He raises his hand. Surrender. You lower your sword. The crowd erupts. You look to the magistrate's box. He stands. He raises his hand and throws a rudis straight to you. It lands in the sand at your feet. The arena goes silent, then wild. You pick it up. Wooden, light, smooth. It might as well weigh 1,000 suns. Quirky fact. Not every gladiator who received the rudis walked away. Some declined it. Others kept fighting for money, pride, or because they didn't know how to be anything else. You grip it tight. You hold it high. You bow. And you walk out. Not backward, not limping, but forward. Chest lifted. Alive. Free. Freedom feels like confusion. You're outside the gates now. The world is louder, somehow, and smells less like sweat and more like bread. You blink against the sunlight, and used to seeing it without bars in the way. No one tells you where to go. You clutch the rudis like it might vanish if you let go. Still smooth, still wooden, still real. A symbol, a ticket, and a question mark. You wander for hours. The streets of Capua are strangely indifferent. People bustle. Merchants shout. No one recognizes you today, and you're not sure if that stings or soothes. You pass the amphitheater again. The banners wave. The drums thump faintly inside. Another fight. Another someone stepping into the sand for the first time, hoping to survive long enough to matter. You turn away. You rent a room above a baker's shop. The air smells like yeast and sleep. You sit on a straw mattress, knees aching, palms open, unsure what to do with your hands when they're not holding a weapon. Later, you work, not as a gladiator, as a porter, carrying sacks, sweating honestly. Your arms still know the weight of a sword. but your back learns the rhythm of grain. One day, a boy points at you. "You're Velox," he whispers. You nod. Quietly, he smiles, then runs off. You don't follow. Quirky fact. Some retired gladiators became instructors at Ludi, training the next generation. Others faded into common life, anonymous but whole. A few ended up right back in the arena, because gold glitters and memory forgets pain faster than it should. You keep the rudis on your wall. Sometimes you touch it, not to remember the pain, but to remember the luck, and the noise, and the sand, and the way survival looked a lot like defiance when the sunlight hit your armor just right. Historians still argue what made a gladiator truly great. Was it skill, charisma, luck, or simply not dying? You never know what happened to Ari, or Cadiern, or Lucius. You hear rumors, catch names in passing. Maybe they made it, maybe they didn't. But you know this, when the bread is warm, when the streets are quiet, when your body forgets how to flinch, you feel more human. You survived the arena, and you walked out with your story. Now someone else is writing theirs. And tonight, for once, you'll sleep without listening for footsteps in the dark. The streets have gone quiet now. The oil lamps flicker low, casting soft halos against the walls, like fading memories of a time when every heartbeat felt borrowed. The air is cooler, less insistent, and even the stone beneath your feet seems to exhale. You rest your head, finally, without armor. The calluses on your hands no longer ache. The bruises are fading. The scars remain, gentle ridges that remind you of who you were and who you dared to become. Not a killer, not a pawn, just someone who lived when living wasn't guaranteed. The noise of the crowd, it used to live in your bones, didn't it? That rising tide of roars and gasps. But now, it's quieter, softer, as if even the ghosts of the Colosseum have learned to whisper. So tonight, as you lie there, surrounded not by chains but by blankets, not by rivals but by silence, let your breath slow. You are not in the arena anymore. You are safe. You are free. And as your thoughts stretch like shadows across the room, know that your story was never just about blood. It was about persistence, about showing up, about surviving the unspeakable, and then waking up to do it again. Sleep now, fighter. The crowd is gone. The gates are closed, and the night is yours.